It was the 7th November 1943 at 12 o'clock at night. Well, I was up at the time, I wasn't going to bed. So I heard this plane, well, not too far from the house, so I just got up and I went to the hall window and I looked out the window and I could see the plane from where I lived. It seemed to me over the village of Ryehill. And I opened the hall door. So just as I was opening the hall door, I could hear like a clatter, like, you know, and when I did open, I seen this flash, and that was like two sheets of galvanized striking together. So the place went up in flames. It was really frightening. Like you could see all over the countryside. The lake, the houses, well, the house will say a quarter of a mile from where I lived. They seemed just like a few hundred yards. You could count all the stacks of oats in the gardens. The stacks of oats that time. And my father got up. So I went as far as the accident spot. Well, we could hear those bullets going all around. We were lucky, I suppose, we weren't hit. I suppose it was a dangerous thing to do. But we were there for a while, and oh my God, the fire. It could be seen for miles and miles around. But I didn't see any of the bodies, but people did. So, but you know, we were really lucky like it, because it had only bypassed the village of Ryehill. There's only 2 fields now between where it crashed and the village of Ryehill. And there was 5 houses there, or 6, and they were like in a cluster. And then there was a few more houses around, much nearer. So we stayed there. I can't exactly say how long we stayed there, but there wasn't many there like at the time because it was late at night. We went down the next day then, but it was hard. We couldn't get in then because it's cordoned off. The LDF were there, but we just got a few little bits and pieces from it. I have a piece of the parachute, and I got a few more pieces, but it sat there kind of stray. But just where it hit an old Fairford to the hill. If it hit any other place, there might have a chance.
My name is Antigone, and I'm involved in the Old Tuam Society, Historical Society, and we produce a book which is called JOTS, Journal of the Old Tuam Society, and it's out once a year. So I write articles, and I like to get unusual articles. And when I heard about the story out here about the plane crashing, I thought it was very interesting. Now the locals all thought they were all Canadians, so I said I'll have to investigate, and that's how I got involved. I'm always looking for something, and people will come up to me and say, can you write about this, or can you find out about that? And then I got involved with Tony. Tony lives out here in Capadavik, and he's been brought up with the story. So, and it's come down through the generations. They had always wanted to put a plaque up near to the crash site. So this was the opportunity for the Old Tuam Society and the Lovely people to get involved. And Tony was chairman of the Lovely people. He was a great help, you know, getting them all together.
My name is Tony McHugh, and I'm from Lavely here, and I teach in the local school here in Lavely, the primary school. And I've lived here all my life, and I grew up here in this area in the 1950s. And this was about a decade just after the Halifax plane had crashed in Ryehill. And there were many stories about it that we heard of as children at the time. And I remember distinctly my grandmother telling me the story how the night it crashed around 12 o'clock. It was a very cold, dark night. And when she heard that this had crashed, she grabbed all the blankets off the beds and ran down the road to see what had happened. And in case there were any dead bodies, she wanted to, or one injured, she wanted to wrap the blankets around them. But when she got there, which was just about less than a quarter of a mile down the road, she found that all 7 of the crew had been killed, and the bodies were strewn around the field around about where the crash site. And There were many stories abounding as well from people saying, describing how the remains of the aircraft were carried away on lorries, and that it took, some people would say 7 lorries, and some would say 10, and some would say, adding on to it, the number of lorries had to carry away the remains of the aircraft. It was quite a big aircraft, the Halifax, at the time, and the 7 young men who died in it were all from different parts of the world. But at the time, the local people thought that they were all from Canada, which wasn't correct, of course. 2 of them actually were, but the rest were from Australia, the US, and England, Scotland. But there was a tale being told that one of them had come from Ireland, and we now know that this was probably the one who was Anthony Gallagher, whose people had immigrated from Donegal to Australia.
What it was a training exercise in England in the RAAF, and they were going to land, they were out for 6 hours, they were going to land in Ryehill in Yorkshire, and by radio contact they were told to go to Marsden Moor, which was 5 miles away, because 2 planes had already crash landed on the runway. But whatever happened after that, they just lost it. They went off course. The logbook says they went off course, and they came over to Ireland. Now they were circling around Tuam for an hour or so to use up the fuel, and obviously they were coming down, they saw the lake, because the locals said that when they found the bodies that they had no shoes on, so obviously they was going to be thinking they were going to swim. So they were circling around for an hour, and as they were coming down, they crash landed into the local ringfort, and the tail came up and the plane crashed. People in the locality, they came rushing out with blankets and see could they help the people. But the intense heat of the plane, it fought them back, and there was nothing actually they could do. Because
of neutrality, it was all hush-hush, and no official information was released until much later. I think it was in 63 years later before the actual information was released. And we always had a burning desire to find out where the men exactly came from and what happened to them. So we decided to set up a memorial to them, to those men, a few years ago, in 2007. In one sense, it took a bit of effort, but it was made easy by the local. We had lots of local help and cooperation on it. The local people agreed that the piece of ground that was lying there could be used for this, and the building of the memorial was built mainly by local help, which was voluntary community work. All the community came in, somebody had a digger and dug out the foundation for it, and somebody else did the drain work, and then we got a bit of help from relatives, and we got a very small grant from from County Council, but it was mainly voluntary work that brought about the development of it. And then we began to research, and Anne Tierney researched the names she found, of the 7 men, and traced them around the world, and got in touch with relatives who were still delighted to hear from them, because they too hadn't heard anything except when it happened. After it happened, they got a one-liner from the army or the defence forces telling them that their son or brother, as it was, had been killed, lost over Ireland, but they didn't know any details of how this had happened. So they were delighted to hear. Many of them came to the memorial service. That was in August of 2007. Many of them came from the US and Australia and England to be at the memorial service in 2007.
I welcome you all to this memorial garden, not far from the site of the fatal air crash which took place on the 7th of November 1943.
Distinguished guests and friends, not only from Lavely and Tuam, but from many parts of Ireland and countries abroad. We have assembled here in this wonderful garden of remembrance to pay tribute to the 7 young men whose names are engraved on the memorial plaque beside us.
It is an honour to be here today to remember the sacrifice of those who died in the tragic crash of Halifax EB134. As you have heard, 3 Australian, 1 Canadian and 3 British young men died when their plane crashed on a training exercise not far from where we now gather.
Canada very much appreciates the efforts that people have made here to commemorate this tragic event. It is indeed symbolic of the Irish spirit of reconciliation and, in recent years, the acceptance of wars past and the role of those who took part in them.
As we gather around this memorial today, let us join together in prayer. As inevitably happens in time of war, some did not return. We pay tribute to them today.
O God, the Creator of all things in heaven and on earth, look down on this parcel of land that has been set aside and beautified by the La Valley community. We ask your blessing on this memorial, dedicated to those who lost their lives in the Halifax bomber EB134, and pray that it may become a ladder to heaven for many who will pause in silent remembrance at this spot.
There are 7 names mentioned here, 7 individuals, 7 men who went out to do their duty, as I hope none of us will ever be called on, and did it bravely, and paid the ultimate price.
Perhaps it is significant that 7 should die here in the month of November, when the people of Ireland remember in a special way their dead. It is also the month when the dead of both world wars are remembered. The words quoted at Remembrance Day, services all over the world are appropriate today. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn them. At the going down of the sun and in the evening we will remember them. We will remember them.
The Airman's Prayer. My God, this night I have to fly, and ere I leave the ground, I come with reverence to thy throne, where perfect peace is found. I thank thee for the life I've had, for home and its love. I thank thee for the faith I have, that cometh from above. Come with me now into the air, be with me as I fly. Guide thou each move that I shall make, way up there in the sky. And should it be my time to die, be with me to the end. Help me to die a Christian's death, on thee, God, I depend. Then as I leave this mortal frame, from human ties set free, receive my soul, O God of love, I humbly come to thee.
Thank you.